Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to this special crossover podcast between the team here at the Daily Newcastle podcast and the team representing our opponents this weekend, the Daily Arsenal podcast. Now, my name is Michael Grahamslaw and I'll be today's host. Firstly, I'm going to introduce the other member of Daily Newcastle here today, and that is Iain. How's it going, Iain?
Well, finally we're here. It's going great, Michael. It's been a tense start, shall we say? But anyway, let's get on with it.
Yeah, if anyone must know, I did awkwardly play a piano jingle the first time we tried to do this, so we're trying it again. But I'm also joined by two of Arsenal's finest. Firstly, joined by Jamie. How's it going, Jamie?
Yeah, all good, thank you. All good, thank you.
Spot on. And I'm also joined by Esmonde. How's it going?
It's going good. It's going good. Good. Thanks for having us on. And this will be an interesting pod.
Excellent. Now, at the weekend, we should have an excellent contest lined up. Well, on paper, it looks that way. But recently, as Newcastle have hosted Arsenal, it's not really been that way at St James's Park. Last season's wasn't a great watch, and then with the 0-0 before that, exactly the same. But first of all, I'm aware that our listeners, well, at least half of them, have pretty much no idea about the opposition at the weekend, apart from what they see on, let's say, BBC. So, to begin, I want to get an idea of how the feeling is amongst fans regarding the start of the season. So, I'll start with Arsenal first, as we're gracious hosts here up north. 9 games gone, 5 wins, 3 draws, 1 loss, 18 points. What's the feeling regarding at the start of the season that Arsenal have had?
Yeah, I mean, we feel a bit. It's interesting because statistically, we're pretty much like in the same place we were last season, but it feels like we've had like 30 more red cards than last season already. So there's that, and then also I guess like we were lucky last season without the injuries, but now we're getting like everyone's dropping like flies. I mean, luckily today it looks like Arteta said that Gabriel and Timber are fine, which is good. But yeah, the amount of people that are still out, especially obviously our talisman, Odegaard, and then obviously we had Saka only recently come back. It feels like we've not had as much luck, and especially also with refereeing decisions. And we know last time we came to St James's Park, it was a bit of a mess. I don't know if you guys paid off the referees or VAR, or if Michael Oliver was in charge of that game. But yeah, no, I know you know. I know you don't know what happened because obviously you don't know what happened. But yeah. I don't know about you, Jamie, but yeah, it feels like a weird season where like our standards have been raised, but also at the same time we feel a bit,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that there, Esmonde. I mean, we've gone into this season and it just seems like we can't catch a break. Compared to last season, we could manage well, we could cope with 1 or 2 injuries, but it just seems like this season we cannot catch a break with obviously losing Odegaard, and then thankfully we've got Saka back, and there's positive news on Timber and Gabriel, but again, we are really missing Odegaard, and from what I've been hearing, he is starting to train back on the grass, so there could be a good possibility that he could be back with us sooner rather than later.
I mean, from the outside looking in,
Saturday night.
yeah, he tends to play
back
well against us. To be fair, do you want him back if Joe Linton's and Bruno are as aggressive as we were this time last season? He might end up with a worse in the injury. So I'm probably hoping for his sake that he's not, because he's a fantastic player. But from the outside looking in, I think a few people have gotten the impression that we're seeing a different Arsenal this year. Possession-wise, the average is under 50%. Shots per game is below the likes of Bournemouth and West Ham. But ultimately, you're still getting the results and you're still scoring plenty of goals. But is there a deliberate change in the style of play that maybe those that haven't watched you wouldn't be aware of? Or is it just a consequence of, let's say, injuries?
I'll let you go, Jamie. Go on.
All right, then. you got to think about that for a sec, haven't you? But yeah, no. I do believe that our style of play really hasn't changed much. We still kind of play out from the back and it still works. As I mentioned before, I just think it's been really unfortunate with the injuries, and then on top of that, with the red cards that we've had during the course of the season, it's just not been. It's not been easy, but we've managed to somehow still sustain our goal scoring form and at least
Yeah.
a good win, despite obviously losing to Bournemouth. We seem to be doing all right, and touch wood, fingers crossed that we can just continue on, as we've got quite a busy schedule coming up. After Newcastle, we go away to Inter. We've got quite a lot of away fixtures coming up before we are even at home again. So it would be
Yeah.
good to kind of try and build some momentum over the next few games coming up before we do eventually have a home game.
Absolutely. And Ian, from a Newcastle perspective, fourth lowest goals scored in the league this season. No wins
I
from the
know.
last 5. Can you
I
give us
know.
a summary of how Newcastle fans are feeling heading into this game?
Well, Newcastle fans are very much of a mixed bag at the moment. There are the people who just look at the results and want Eddie out, which I think is an unconsidered approach. I mean, I was hoping that we would be building up some momentum to take Arsenal on by having Brighton at home and then doing something at Chelsea. And actually, we've played quite well in those games and we've created a lot of chances. We just
Absolutely.
haven't taken them. So I know we've got a cup match tomorrow, which hopefully we can start with a win. I don't want to go and play Arsenal with six games without a win. I think we're playing quite well. I'm hoping Gordon will be fit enough to play against Arsenal.
Yeah.
I'm hoping both he and Isak have had a look at the back of their lockers and found the shooting boots that they had last year, rather than whatever they've been wearing this year. Because between the pair of them, they've missed a hatful of chances in the last 3 games, and we've got 1 point out of the last 9 to show for it. When I think
Yeah.
actually we probably should have had 9 out of 9 if you look at the XG. I don't like XG as it's just an excuse, but we have created a lot of chances that we haven't taken. So, as Kev would tell you, we've only played 9 games. There's still a lot of football to be played. Let's get back to actually putting the ball in the net, and then this refound intensity that we've had in the last 3 games might just shake Arsenal up on Saturday night. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look at it, it's funny that you mention XG because, the last expected XG for the last 3 games for Newcastle is over 6, while the actual goals scored is just 1. And that was obviously the tap in from Alexander Isak against Chelsea. So that doesn't bode well against coming up what is regarded as one of the best defences in the league. But I digress. To emphasise something else that Ian mentioned earlier is that a small minority of our fan base have lost faith in Eddie Howe to take Newcastle forward. And November is going to be a very important month for the club. Starting, obviously, with Arsenal. I'm sure it's the game we would love to have started November with. But I've seen that for over a year now. Newcastle fans have been very so-so on Eddie Howe for a long time. But one thing I hadn't seen up until the Bournemouth game was criticism over Mikel Arteta. Now, I saw after that Bournemouth game, maybe it was just angry reactions, but a little bit of discomfort and distress towards Arteta, saying he wasn't the right man to take Arsenal forward. Now, is that just people on social media being words I can't say on this podcast, or is it sort of, actually something that's growing in the Arsenal fan base?
What sources are these? Is this Talksport? Are these like people coming in, like calling in, like who are actually Chelsea fans and just being like, oh yeah, I hate Arteta. I think he should be out. No one's saying this. No one's saying this. Any Arsenal fan I talk to in real life, those are the real sources. No one's talking about Arteta, leaving it. Everyone trusts Arteta. I mean, obviously, I don't know where you stood, like, when he started out, but it was kind of maybe 50-50 in terms of, like, people wanting them in, people wanting them out. But now we know to trust the process. Yeah, I don't know if you're using Twitter or anything, but I'll get off that as soon as possible, to be honest.
It's one of those where... Sorry,
it's
go on,
very
Ian.
much that it's very much just the dissenting voices, because they do stand out, get talked about. There's a huge silent majority at Newcastle And I'm sure it's even a bigger silent majority at Arsenal who are perfectly happy with the way things have been unfolding over the last 3 years. And as you say, they trust the process because it's produced good results for a long time. I'm certainly in that camp in terms of Eddie Howe, and I can't believe that anybody would be agitating to get Arteta moved out. He seems to have bought well. He's got a dynamic side, joy to watch sometimes, and I would go as far as to say the best defence in the Premier League. They are scary. You've got to you've got to knock a ball from out of play, push them over, and then tap it in from an offside position to beat them these days.
It's an excellent point. And the reason I raised it is because something we've been speaking about recently on the Daily Newcastle podcast is not believing everything you read on social media. We've got the same with Eddie Howe, as Ian's just said, and it's quite obviously the same with Arsenal. So with that, we're going to end part one, where the vocal minority have reared their ugly head, and we're going to move on to something much more beautiful in an advert.
Yeah, I should be a vocal minority of one. Do you have a story to tell that the world needs to hear? Have you struggled with reaching new audiences who are engaged with your story? It might be time for you to start a podcast. Let me tell you about a platform we use here at Global Sports Podcast Network. Zencastr makes it easy to start a high-quality podcast built for growth from day one. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, you knows, and 22 other speech patterns, Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. Ready to tell your story? Check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. And that's for all the oldies out there who love a bit of retro.
Absolutely fantastic, Ian. Thank you very much. And welcome back to this crossover podcast between Global Sports Networks, Newcastle United, and Arsenal teams. So, in part one, we spoke a little bit about the general feeling of the fan bases. And in part two, we're actually going to start our preview of the game. Now, historically, Newcastle's record against Arsenal is pretty dreadful. In fact, between March 2012 and May 2022, Arsenal had won 18 out of 19 meetings between the two sides. Since then, it's been a little bit better reading for Newcastle, with 2 wins for us, 2 wins for Arsenal, and 1 draw. Ian, Newcastle results-wise have improved against Arsenal, but do you think that can continue at the weekend, despite our poor form?
There were a number of things for us to hold on to. I remember going into the Manchester City game a month ago, feeling like we were going to play really well, but there was no evidence that we were going to at all. And
Yeah.
actually, we did. We did. And it was a step up on previous games against City. I know we drew 1-1, but they actually looked really rattled after an hour. I thought we had them. We should have won that game.
Yeah.
I've got a similar feeling about this Arsenal match as well, because I think large parts of the team have functioned really, really well. As I say, there's a little bit of confidence, which I think will come back if the ball just bounces in off Dan Burns' backside at a corner. Something stupid like that is all that's needed to really turn the tide and get us thinking that we're going to score again. A lot of what we're doing is on point, I think, and I am encouraged by the fact that this is an Arsenal side stripped of its main creative talent, with a defence, however good those individual defenders are, that is not the same four as it usually is with Arsenal, but they chop and change because of suspensions and injuries. I don't know if Timber's going to come back in. Calafiori was missing on the last game, was he not? The last league game, but is not suspended. He might come back in, and there's another change. I know he'll have Saliba and Gabriel. That might be some sort of immovable object for us to try and get through. But hey, we cannot continue to produce the chances and not put some of them away. And I think a Saturday night match with the St James's Park crowd behind us, if we score first, I think it'll be a tough evening for Arsenal.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, with it being a morning fixture, the old 12:30, I think it's one of those
Sorry.
where we haven't seen Newcastle fans turn up in the past. But I've got a feeling Arsenal coming to town people will be in the pubs from 9 o'clock, and we'll start seeing maybe a rowdier Newcastle atmosphere than what we're used to for those 12:30s. So to be honest, it'll be like that PSG game in the Champions League, 7:45, crowd all up for it, or at least that's what we hope on our end. But
I did
it's not just
mean
with Newcastle.
I did mean lunchtime and not evening, by the way. I was thinking of the game against City, which was also a 12:30 kickoff. I was trying to compare that. And now I look an idiot. Never mind. Not the first time.
Well, I tried to make it discreet, but you've just put it out there. But
Uh,
this isn't just a Newcastle podcast. We're also going to talk about Arsenal. The draw against Liverpool showed an improvement to 100% on what we saw against maybe Shakhtar Donetsk and Bournemouth since the international break. But on your side, is this viewed as a must-win game for the Gunners?
I feel like we said on our podcast that because so in one of my group chats, football group chats, I used to do a podcast at university, and we have like an amalgamation of different fans, and one of them's a Liverpool fan, and he said like, why are Arsenal like season finale FC? Every game is like a must win. But then like I brought it up to the lads, and some of them were guests for the first time, and they were like, yeah, it does feel like every game is like we have to win that game. We have to win that game. But I think it just goes to show how good City are. Because City have made it to a point where like the average points to win a season, Premier League season over the last 10 years is like 90 points. And the only other two teams who have won the Premier League have been Liverpool and Leicester. So it's just like, you can't, even when Rodri, who's now the Ballon d'Or winner, is like coming out and saying like after last season, after they won again, they're like, they know we're going to win like, 10, 12 games at the end of the season. So you kind of have to be perfect. But yeah, I don't know about you, Jamie, but I just feel like the standards have been raised so much to the point where like you kind of just can't. Every game is a must win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you couldn't have said it better. City just go from strength to strength every season. They have a very quiet they have a very quiet start to the season, but once they get warmed up, that they can't be stopped. So yeah, every game for us is going to be a must win. There's going to be times where, yes, games are going to be a lot more tougher. I mean, me and Esmonde kind of touched on it yesterday in a podcast where we kind of said, like, going into Newcastle, it is going to be, it's never easy. Going away to St James's Park is never easy. It is a very intimidating atmosphere when the players come out of the tunnel, and especially as it's a lunchtime game as well. It's going to be it's going to be huge for Newcastle. It's huge for Arsenal. Both teams are going to really go at each other, and for Arsenal and last season, we will obviously want a bit of revenge after the ball crossing over the line, which it clearly did. But anyway,
just for those who aren't watching the video, Ian's nodding and saying, yeah, it did go over the line. So like, the proof's in the pudding, man. Proof's in the pudding.
I'm just checking the record books, Esmond.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll see that goal stood. That goal stood, so it must have been in.
No. You changed. You've changed very quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. Yeah, but look, at the end of the day, it's going to be a huge one. The atmosphere is going to be tense for Arsenal. For the Arsenal fans sitting up in the heavens, it's going to be amazing. And honestly, bring it on this weekend. I'm ready.
Yeah, you guys are mean with the away fans, man. You put them all the way up in the heavens, like they can barely get, like you can barely hear them. You guys are evil, man. But fair enough, man. It makes your ground intimidating, which I rate.
The rest of the seventh floor at St James's. The rest of the seventh floor at St James's Park is where they put the families, so they make all the kids and the pregnant mothers walk all up those stairs as well.
The thing is, it's absolutely freezing up there as well. So actually, it's very good that it's at 12:30, because if it's 7:45, I was up there for the Wimbledon game, and I didn't just nearly fall asleep because of the poor performance. I think the only thing that kept me awake was the cold. I was sitting there with my wife, like shivering, turning blue. So good news for the Arsenal fans on that front, but hopefully not in regards to the result. So that's all for part 2. And we're going to go into another advert.
This podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football, and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network. Every club, every day.
Absolutely spot on. Thank you very much, Ian. So, we've established who will be sort of out for the game on Saturday. Briefly, we mentioned Gabriel. Obviously, Ian, you mentioned Anthony Gordon as well. Both doubts. It's looking increasingly likely that both of those may play, as contrast to Saliba, who's out with suspension, Callum Wilson, etc., who are seemingly out forever for Newcastle. But that's a different topic. But I'd like to hear from Esmonde or Jamie. Are there any Newcastle players that you're looking at on Saturday and going, I actually think they might cause us trouble? Or are you fairly confident?
I think, to be honest, like obviously Isak's coming from injury. I did watch him in the Chelsea game. He did score, but like he is clearly still like struggling to get back into it. I think if we allow him to play this player, then we do have a problem. And I think that's Bruno Guimaraes. I think if we allow him to dictate, it's going to be a problem because he's going to turn up for big games. He's probably going to go down maybe like 20. So we'll have to be wary of that as well. But yeah, I think if we stop him, we stop the creative outlet.
Yeah, you might well be right. Do you agree with that, Jamie?
Yeah, I actually was thinking of Bruno G as well because, again, it's just he is that driven force for Newcastle. Once he gets forward and if someone's there to provide, if he can provide for someone, it's then what do Arsenal then do defensively, especially when you look at the injuries that we've got. I think I might have mentioned it to Esmonde. Like we've only got maybe 3 off the top of my head. I think it's like 3 potential defenders that are fully fit, but then all the rest are either injured or suspended. So, I agree with Bruno G. I also would say Isak as well. Maybe even Tonali. I know he's not really been spoken about enough of, but coming back from obviously his ban, he would be another one to kind of look out for as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all 3 are fantastic shouts. Midfield probably hasn't played as well as what Newcastle fans would have hoped, but there's clear signs that when they do gel, they'll be a force. Now, Ian, I'm going to ask you pretty much the same question. Is there anyone you fear from that Arsenal side?
Saka's in fantastic form, isn't he? And he's a fantastic player anyway. Hopefully lost a half a yard because he's still coming back from his injury. But I
Tell
think
that to
even
Andy
with a half
Robinson, mate.
I know. He still hasn't slept since then. Yeah, Saka's capable of doing it. One guy who I've not seen a lot of this year, and that might be because he's been playing quietly, but is equally devastating when he is on form on the other side, is Martinelli. And even if he's left out and it's Trossard who comes in on that side, I mean, they've got an array of attacking talent, any one of which can be the game changer. It's like trying to pick a horse in the national, trying to pick which Arsenal squad member is going to be the one to do the most damage. Not Odegaard. He's not doing it this time. Okay, can't.
Quick question for the Newcastle lads. Like, why do you think there's been an imbalance in your midfield? Because like I look at that midfield, Tonali, Joelinton, and Bruno. I feel like that's such a strong midfield. Is it because maybe Tonali's just not been around and like he's not maybe caught up to speed with like Joelinton and Bruno, or is there just like maybe too many similarities between some of them? Why do you think it is?
I think there was a midfield that played a lot together last year, and Longstaff was a big part of that.
Yeah.
Now, Longstaff will burst forward and open up some space, and I'm not sure that Tonali or Joelinton do that. We were discussing whether there needs to be a change and decided that it's these 3 will be the 3. But Tonali's kind of a new player coming in, so you're trying to bed in a new member in that midfield. Joelinton, I think his role is changing. You might see Joelinton
On the
stepping
wing?
back because
No.
of Saka on the left, stepping back and becoming a third centre half, which was a tactic that we saw when they played Man City, and really Silvino never really got a kick in that game because there was too much for him to go at. So extra defensive responsibilities, not a Willock, not a Longstaff to burst forward into the final third. I think it's unspectacular at the moment, but fantastic player. If you've seen any of Tonali playing at Milan,
he's brilliant. Yeah,
world class at Milan. So he'll end up being world class at Newcastle. It's just they've got to find a way to play together and to complement each other instead of duplicate each other, which I think they're guilty of a lot at the moment. So watch this space. They've got another full week's training behind them before they play Arsenal. It could be this weekend. Who knows?
You might absolutely be right. I think, to be honest, it is a good point of, we don't have Longstaff making those bursting runs from the first minute to the last into the box. If you look at any of his goals last season, he was a regular goal scorer from midfield. And a lot of them were from the overlapping fullback, knocking it back, and Longstaff cutting it into the bottom corner. Now, he tried it about 700 times, it felt like. Executed it about 8. So that tells you haven't got to be worried about that. But we'll sort of end on predictions here. So we'll start off with our predictions for the game. I'll begin with Ian, then we'll move to the 2 Arsenal lads, and then we'll end with mine as the host. So, Ian, I feel like I know what this might be. What is your prediction for Saturday? Can't be another 3-1, can it?
Can I just ask, because I'm not sure. I thought Saliba was back, but is he still suspended? Was he
he's
a 3
back.
game that he got?
I believe he's back.
Is he?
He's back.
Yeah. Yeah, that tempers my enthusiasm for Newcastle to win 3-1. It's a standing joke amongst the team that my prediction for all the Newcastle games is that we win 3-1. I've done it since I was about 18. And the thing is, there was one game at Highbury, that's how long ago it was, where we actually did win 3-1. And it was just as unlikely as it happening later this season. I got 66-1 on it. So yeah, you can afford to do 3-1 many, many times if they come in occasionally. So I'm going to go 3-1.
It's not a deluded prediction. He does it every week, and it will come off soon.
Maybe for the reverse Man City fixture,
yeah.
Well, either that or Tottenham. We tend to score a fair few against them.
Yeah, that's right.
And we do remember that the last time we scored 3 against you, you scored 7. So let's not hope for a repeat.
That was a great game, that though, wasn't it? That was a fabulous game.
Not for me.
Oh yeah, fabulous game. Yes, Ian, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
It was so close. It was 4-3 when we went into injury time or something, wasn't it? And then I think it's Theo Walcott that started. Playing like he had magic boots.
Less said.
I enjoyed that game. Anyway, go on. What do you think, Michael?
Well, I'm going to finish off, so I'm going to go to the Arsenal team. What's your predictions?
I'm probably going to say 2-1 Arsenal. And if you want me to put some if you want me to also give you some scorers, I'll probably say for Newcastle, I'll probably say Isak. Mm-hmm. Arsenal, I'm probably going to go for Havertz and Saka.
Absolutely spot.
I'm going bold. I'm thinking 3-0 to the Arsenal. So I think with Saliba back, our away form this season has been superb. I think obviously Starboy will probably score. Havertz bullet header, and Mikel Moreno comes back to haunt his old club.
And does
an absolute madness from a Rice corner. I think that's what it is.
That was a great header against Liverpool.
It was
a very, very fantastic free kick. Can I just say that I don't know if you remember, Michael, when we talked to the Chelsea boys last week, one of them picked 3-0 for Chelsea, and the other picked 2-1. And of course, he was right. You better not be right, Jamie, or there's going to be trouble. Okay? I think that all those bloody London teams colluding, the London podcast teams colluding to do these predictions.
Everyone does it.
Yeah. I think I should say, by the way, I'm more than happy to win 1-0 again with a goal that has 3 different VAR questions answered in our favour. I'm more than happy to
That's
do that
evil, bro.
again.
That's evil, bro. That's terroristic tendencies right there, man. Come on, man. You don't want that.
Oh,
Not for the league,
I
man.
am
Come on,
not
man.
sitting through another 10-minute VAR call. I am not doing that. Honestly, last season it was dreadful. I'm sat even closer this year, so it's going to be absolutely dreadful if that happens. But to finish off, I'm going to give my prediction, and I think it'll be a very tight game. And I kind of knew the 2 Arsenal lads would pick a win for Arsenal, so that's why I'm going to end with a 2-1 win for Newcastle. I think it might be a draw, but I'm trying to be positive because I'm always told I'm too negative. So I think we're going to score early. The fans are going to be up for it. From in the pubs from 9 a.m. We're going to use that momentum, and we only get good results against the big teams at the minute. Well, Tottenham as well. We beat them and then got the draw against Man City. Look, Tottenham aren't big; it's fine. But the lads on their pod are lovely as well. It's fine.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
what is there a rivalry there that I might need to know about?
It's already started. We have to get our stuff in before they get their stuff in. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
But whatever the result is, we'd like to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Daily Newcastle and Daily Arsenal podcasts. Thank you for supporting the 2 teams, and we'll see each other again in May.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.